talkTV. Iran has warned Israel it is likely to review its nuclear stance if its atomic facilities are threatened as tensions rise following the Islamic Republic's drone and missile attack on Israel this past weekend. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said on Thursday that Tehran may reconsider its nuclear policy, which it has long insisted is purely peaceful, but which Western powers say has put it on the threshold of becoming a weapons state. Joining me now is former Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill. Rob, a very good evening to you. Welcome to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. This situation has been sort of on the boil for a while, hasn't it? And it's now finally boiled over, as you, I suppose, would say last weekend when Iran fired all of those missiles into Israel. We're hearing that Israel might agree not to sort of hit back in a massive way. But, of course, they would argue, well, we've been dealing with these attacks from various places like Hezbollah and Hamas, Iranian-backed, for years. Right.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. Yeah, the thing that concerns me initially with this is how this administration in the United States says their support is ironclad, but take the win and don't attack. We're not going to support an attack. That brings up what kind of backdoor deals has Iran been having with the United States and potentially Great Britain, in Turkey, places like that. Iran would never attack Israel if they knew that the United States and the UK would help Israel to counterattack. If they knew they would. So they did. And right, I mean, it would be the perfect opportunity. Iran knows this too, that if we re-attacked, we being the West and Israel attacked them, it would show how weak their regime is, how they have no capability of shooting down any of our aircraft, and we could hit their nuclear sites. And there's a number, I mean, they put some weak sanctions on Iran, and they're asking Israel not to re-attack, like some automakers and drone makers, but they're not touching oil sanctions because China buys it, and by God, we can't make China mad because China owns pretty much every politician in the world. So there's a lot more going on simply than this, but it's so weak to see the United States especially saying it's ironclad, and then they literally do nothing.
Right. Well, particularly since a lot of people blame the Democrats, going all the way back to Barack Obama, for this Iranian situation being allowed to get quite as far as it did. Biden taking off the freezing of the assets, allowing them to get their hands on more money to presumably buy more weapons.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's what they're going to do. And I don't understand for the life of me why the Democrats love Iran. I don't know if they honestly believe they're not going to try to build nuclear missiles just because they say they won't. Right. I don't know if there will be peace if they, we used to say we don't negotiate with terrorists. They paid $6 billion for 5 terrorists. We went from 400,000 barrels of oil a day to 2 million barrels of oil, again, going to China. And, China and Iran are hand in hand. And if we're flying pallets of cash into Tehran at night, there's something deep going on. You can't really trust any politician as far as you can throw them, but there's something very odd going on. And it's almost the way that the left spins how Israel's all of a sudden just the bad guy when they're the only democracy in the Middle East.
Well, I don't think there's any other country on the planet that would be advised to take the win, in their words, given that, they've just been under attack, constant attack, and a specifically, very much heavily raised attack over the last weekend. Hundreds and hundreds of missiles coming in. I mean, thank God they've got the Iron Dome and they've got all those, abilities to defend themselves, because we haven't. If they started firing rockets at Britain, we'd be screwed.
Right, and with all the proxies that are going on around the world and all the love for places like Hamas and the Houthis, nothing nowadays would surprise me. It's scary. And just because Israel has a great defense is not a win. Right. It means they fired, hundreds of missiles and drones at them. They shot down 99%. Right. We're very lucky that Iran is incompetent, and a lot of them, like 50% of their missiles didn't fire. It was a misfire, exploded on launch. It's just sending such a weak message. You got that small country of Israel right there. Everyone around them is attacking. I mean, even like places like Jordan are stepping up to the plate because they can basically tell what between right and wrong as far as World War III. Right. And they've got missiles flying over their airspace, and that's why they're stopping them. But I think it comes with the weak withdrawal from Afghanistan. The United States itself proved we lack alliance solidarity. A lot of countries don't trust the United States anymore. Right. And with that, a lot of people aren't really sure either. We need a strong Western alliance for deterrence. And we're going away from that right now, and we're going towards autocracy. We're appeasing different countries that have these regimes. And in Iran especially, the Iranian people are not to blame here. And every time they rise up, our media is silent. And then the Iranians do what they always do. We don't support the right. That's how to beat the Iranian regime is with a coup, something like that.
Exactly.
You know, I've been to war a bunch of times. I hate war. It's violent. Innocent people always get killed. But I mean, enough is enough here. And just defending yourself is not a win. At some point, you need to punch back.
Well, exactly right. And also on the streets of Tehran, even as we speak, women are being dragged off and locked up because they're freeing their hair, because they're taking their scarves off and they're showing their heads, and they're getting taken away by the bleeding morality police. But I was hopeful, I have to say, Rob, that when Saudi Arabia came out and when Jordan came out against Iran, I thought that might be the beginning of some kind of, you know, Middle Eastern accord, because nobody likes Iran in that part of the world. But it doesn't seem to have gone anywhere diplomatically, does it?
No, not at all. I mean, this basically is coming down to the Sunni-Shia split.
Yeah.
Because the Iranians are Shia, and then pretty much everyone else are Sunni. And Saudi Arabia certainly does not want Iran to get nuclear weapons, but they're on the way to it. And this is just a good excuse for them to say, well, if they attack us, we're going to go back on our word and build the nukes, when we know damn well they are. No one wants to admit it. They're already enriched to a certain level, but they need a couple more percentages to get the atomic bomb. Saudi Arabia certainly doesn't want that. I mean, the first thing Iran could do was attack Mecca with a nuke, and then you got the end of times.
Right, exactly right. And of course, they're not going to admit to doing it, are they? They're not going to say, oh, yeah, we're building a nuclear weapon. No. Of course we are. It's kind of naive, isn't it, in the extreme? But the problem is, though, for me, is that the way that the West, as you say, has been appeasing for such a long time, you know, in the end, you wonder whether, you know, a lot of people believe that it was a sort of Russian-induced attack that they brought on Israel over the weekend, that they send in all these drones as a kind of deterrent to the defence systems, to try and confuse the defence systems. Then they come in later with the ballistic missiles. Is that something that sounds plausible to you? And could they do it again, maybe with more success?
Well, I mean, it's definitely plausible. I mean, like I just said a minute ago, 50% of their missiles didn't fire. That alone could be propaganda. Maybe they're tip top. Right. But you know, sending out a jab before you throw the cross. It could be it too. I mean, they do have capabilities. But here's something else people need to realize: Iran is really, really good at lying.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of these people that we seem to believe all the time in the West are also very good at lying as well, as were the Taliban. You know, when we were told, oh, don't worry, the Afghan army is going to stop the Taliban from taking over, and they literally walked in to the capital, Kabul. They didn't get stopped by the army because they paid them off. And everybody went, oh, no, I didn't see that coming.
No, well, I mean, at the end of the day, that's how you get power. You pay off the people who are allegedly lawmakers or in power or whatever. I mean, everywhere from the top generals in the Afghan army to what China's doing to the politicians in every Western country. I mean, that's what you do, because politicians want power and they want money, and they get both as long as they play by their own rules on the in the back channels, and we just bow our heads and go to work like good little workers. Yeah,
well, we had Oliver Dowden, who you may not have heard of, who's our Deputy Prime Minister, right? And he today announced a review into banning British firms from selling new AI technology to China. You have to say, I'm sorry, Oliver, they've probably already got what we wanted to sell them, because they're probably selling it to us.
Well, yeah, and breaking news, they've already stolen everything. I mean, they've been they're in New York, in the United States, there's Chinese spies all over the universities. We have them in the government. We had a Chinese spy driving a senator around for 20 years. Right. And it's simply one of their tactics that they can instill in the West through things like their AI and TikTok is that if they can call anyone a racist, we're just going to shut up. So you can't say that's a Chinese spy driving the senator around because you're racist. Right. And it shuts us up, because when you can't win an argument, start screaming and calling names. And that's what they do. And they know if they distract us being the West like that, they're doing the whole, watch the fire burn from across the river. And when they're exhausted fighting each other, we'll come in with fresh troops. That's exactly what's happening. I mean, it all comes back to China, but they do have pretty bad friends too.
They do, and it's hard to believe that it's all happening by accident as well. You have to start wondering how much of this has been planned from quite a long time ago, all the way back to before they gave us COVID. Thanks very much indeed. Buy up everybody's debt, give the world a terrible disease, and then, of course, start taking over countries. It's all going well for them.
Oh, it certainly is. And it's not even just give them a terrible disease. Give them a disease, tell their governments to lock them down and see how much crap the public will put up with. And it turns out it's a lot. I mean, we had people sitting in bubbles pretending to type on desks, killing each other for not wearing masks that were useless. Right. And someone made up, let's see if we can get dum-dums to stand 6 feet apart. We all did. Yeah. Yeah, well, I didn't actually, but there we are. Listen, great to talk to you, Rob. Yeah. We must get you back on again. Rob O'Neill, former US Navy SEAL. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.